Welcome to all of the participants who are here for this session. The title of my talk is Global Capitalism and Entrepreneurship After COVID-19. Currently, we're undergoing a very interesting time in global history, one where anxieties around a worldwide pandemic have really captured the mind and attention of everyone who's been touched by it. As we think about the future and we think about ways we can come out of this global pandemic and this global crisis, I must insist that we turn to the past. The past provides us various clues on how to tackle upcoming challenges. So, for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to focus on global capitalism in a global historical perspective, and then talk about what role entrepreneurship can play in helping us build a brighter and better future for everyone around the world. So before I actually begin the presentation, I would like to, of course, thank the organizers of the ASPAR World Forum. It's truly an honor to be invited and to share the platform with illustrious speakers from all around the world. And it's really a testament to the leadership of the ASPAR World Forum that they have prioritized quality dialogue and intellectual discussion during a moment of real global crises. And I believe the first step towards solving and resolving some of the problems we are facing is through conversation. So as I mentioned, as we think about planning for the future, really we must think about the past and how we've come to this position. And this is a piece that I wrote with my colleague from Harvard Business School for a course I taught at Harvard Business School and now here at the University of Pennsylvania at the Wharton School on global history. And what I would like you to take away from this particular chart is that, throughout time, especially recent modern history of the last 150 years, we've really seen the rise and fall of cross-border integration across the world. And the way I like to think about this is really in four major segments. So if we think about the 19th century, we see that, from 1840 till about 1930, this was really the first wave of the global economy. We see that it was the height of colonialism, the Industrial Revolution, urbanization all around the world, and really steamship travel that connected parts of the world that were formerly disconnected. And this great wave, the first great wave, continues, of course, until the Great Depression and the series of world wars we see between 1914 and approximately the 1950s. And here I talk about this as the Great Reversal. So we go through a period of deglobalization. Here we see also countries like India and parts of Latin America and Africa coming out of colonialism and really entering a world of protectionist governments as they try to build their national capacities. Much of this changes with the second wave of the global economy between 60s till about the early 2000s, where a series of global terrorist attacks and financial crises once again cripples our world. Finally, the most recent events of the global pandemic promise to take us into a couple of decades of deglobalization where countries are going to have to focus on building capacity. For those of you who are less familiar with history, all I want you to take away from this slide is that global history moves in waves and cycles, and nothing is entirely new. So if we think about our particular position in history at the moment that we're facing this pandemic, we see that we're really on the cusp of what's going to be a couple of decades of protectionism and countries looking a bit more inward to build their capacity, and we shall see what the coming decades will bring. What's interesting about this particular slide is if we contrast it with the next slide. So while history has moved in cycles and we've seen cross-border integration between countries moving in and out, what has remained a constant growth factor across the world is the idea of entrepreneurship and the practice of entrepreneurship. And this is a very simple engram that I've constructed using Google Books. Several millions of books have been scanned to look for the word entrepreneur. And you will see that over the last 150 years, the concept of entrepreneurship has captured all of our imaginations. We must ask ourselves, why is this the case? And a quick survey of the literature suggests that the power of entrepreneurship is really threefold. The first, unleash economic value. Number two, create jobs. And number three, improve the quality of lives of those all around the world. So really, entrepreneurship has to be seen as a value-added proposition that helps countries navigate the ebb and flow of global cycles. Let's think a bit about who is an entrepreneur and why entrepreneurship is quite important. So really, broadly speaking, for those of you who are new to the idea of an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur is someone who creates new products, or more recently, someone who is able to generate new services that are unusual or new to a particular economy. Sometimes new products are really given new impetus by the introduction of new methods. So the prominent example I can give you here is the construction of industrial mills in the 19th and 20th century. In most places around the world, you had small-scale cottage industries that produced cotton cloth. But with the industrial mills, we saw that there was a new method of producing at a scale never seen before. The third type of entrepreneurship is someone who's capable of creating new forms of industrial organization. So the perfect example I can give you here is Henry Ford with the creation of the production line of car production, which has now been cross-applied across industries throughout the world. The fourth would be the opening up of new markets. So for example, multinational corporations who see opportunities across their borders, for example, in emerging markets, would be seen as entrepreneurs. And number five, tapping into new sources of supply. So for example, you can think about the production of particular goods in a particular economy, not relying on global flows for that particular supply, but perhaps building capacity in-house. What I want you to take away from this slide is that this entire process of entrepreneurship, broadly understood, is been labeled creative destruction by one of the most important theorists of the 20th century at Harvard University, Joseph Schumpeter. And really, he used this phrase creative destruction to talk about this idea of constant innovation by which the new replaces the old. So it's destructive, but it's productively destructive, right? It's the idea that something new, something thoughtful replaces something old, and in the process unleashes value, jobs, and generally improves quality of life. Now, what I would like you to take away, in addition to the idea of creative destruction, is that entrepreneurs operate on a spectrum of risk and uncertainty. And usually entrepreneurs find themselves closer to navigating uncertainty. Now, of course, the earlier slides I showed about cross-border integration suggests that the level of globalization in any particular moment in time provides both a barrier but also opportunities to certain entrepreneurs. So for example, if you're an industrial mill owner in India, you would likely benefit from deglobalization and the support of a national government that helps you propagate your factories and sell your products in-house. However, if you're operating a business that involves international traded commodities, oil for example, you would likely benefit from increased globalization where you can sell your product on the market. Now, we've done two things so far. We've said that history operates in a cyclical fashion, and we have the rise and fall of globalization cycles. However, one thing that remains constant throughout that is the growing importance of entrepreneurship. So those are the two main points we've made so far. I would like to shift our attention to the idea of what kind of people become entrepreneurs. So our basic concept of an entrepreneur is the individual who is bootstrapping themselves and really building businesses ground up, okay? And our popular culture, our television, the media helps us believe this idea that individuals create themselves and really push themselves towards an entrepreneurial lifestyle, and they are individually responsible for their success. What I'd like to do today is actually push against this myth. I would like to dispel this myth and tell you that we should stop thinking about entrepreneurs as individuals who are path-breaking in their endeavors and somehow creating value on their own. Research coming out of my own university and many other universities around the world have helped us realize that personality-based theories of entrepreneurship are an empirical dead end. What do I mean by this? I mean that research over the last 30 years that has tried to identify individual personality characteristics of successful entrepreneurship have failed. And this helps us build an alternate theory of entrepreneurship, which is that of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Okay, so I want you to sort of take a step back and ask yourself what theory you believe in, right? It's tempting to follow the individual entrepreneurship path with icons like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or even Bill Gates. But the research tells us otherwise. The research tells us that those individuals who have become successful, they are exceptions to the rule. So then, if it's not individuals, who is really becoming an entrepreneur, and what explains quality entrepreneurship around the world? Well, the most promising area of research in entrepreneurship over the last 2 decades, and really in the coming years, is what I'm calling the contextual theory of entrepreneurship. Okay? The idea here is that individuals don't create individual entrepreneurs, but contexts create entrepreneurs. Okay? So that is another way of saying that individuals are supported by environments that help them unleash their creative potential and then take that creativity to the market and generate some kind of value from it that benefits not only themselves, but benefits the societies that they are a part of. The contextual theory of entrepreneurship has several components, and I will not go into each of these today, but I want you to take away that it's multi-pronged. There are several pillars, as you see in front of you, that create an appropriate context for entrepreneurship. Some of the key ones are going to be government policy, regulatory frameworks, a culture, a society that promotes entrepreneurship as a culture, universities and educational training systems, and a robust system of mentors and advisors that help new generations of individuals, the young and promising individuals, really believe in themselves and believe in their ideas. Okay? So, to recap here, what I'm trying to advocate is that during crisis and even after the crisis, we will see that entrepreneurship is going to function best in societies where there's a contextual support for entrepreneurial ventures. Some examples I can give of in today's economy are states like Singapore or Denmark or Estonia, which have done a remarkable job in creating new ecosystems where they're able to leverage new talent and new resources to build companies of value that really improve the human condition. So let me give you a little bit more context about why the contextual theory of entrepreneurship makes most sense and how it provides us an actionable plan to move forward as we think about coming out of COVID-19 and building a prosperous future for ourselves and our children in the years to come. So before COVID-19 hit in 2018, I'm relying on a World Bank study here that's quite credible and that many of us scholars use. We can see that the top 20 countries for doing entrepreneurship or ease of business are right in front of you, okay? This particular report, the ease of doing business, takes into consideration each of these factors that I've outlined for you. Based on that particular set of factors, each country is given a score, okay? And the scores you can see in the middle column here in yellow. So before COVID-19 hit in 2018, here are the top 20 countries of doing business and entrepreneurship. You will quickly notice that apart from Korea, okay, and China, really most of these countries belong in the European North, the Americas with the United States, and largely developed economies around the world. South and Southeast Asia is largely missing, the Middle East is missing, and countries in Africa are also missing from this particular list. Now in 2018, if I provided you this list, you would probably feel a little bit pessimistic and think to yourself, why aren't countries in the Middle East and other parts of emerging economies on this particular list? For those of you who are sitting in Riyadh at the moment, you'll like to know that Saudi Arabia in 2018 ranked 92 out of 119, so it was fairly average in the list. What has changed from 2018 till the present time? So let's go to the next slide, which tells us that during COVID, that is in 2020, right? 2020, the last 2 years, much progress has been made by countries in the emerging world because they have paid close attention to the entrepreneurial ecosystems that are going to help unleash new value and new creativity. So you will notice that if Saudi Arabia, for example, in the previous link, ranked at 92, in this particular slide, just within a year and a half, they were able to jump 30 positions in the list to reach a rank of 62 out of 190. In addition, right, in the top 20, you will see new entrants. You will see Malaysia, Islamic Republic, you will see Mauritius, and you will also see the United Arab Emirates. Okay, so positive gains in the last 1.5 years alone. Aggregate scores of ease of doing business and unleashing entrepreneurial talent. These economies have done a wonderful job already jumping the list in the top 20. That is Malaysia, Mauritius, and UAE. And Saudi Arabia has jumped 30 position points in the ranking to achieve 62 out of 190. Now, you may think to yourself, well, how does this matter? The top 5 or the top 10 are still major developed economies, right? Yes, that's true. That's a very valid argument and a very valid point. But the point I would like to emphasize, and I would like you to take away from this list, is that the real opportunities in describing entrepreneurial ecosystems are where economies are improving. So in this list that I've just provided here, here are the top 10 improvers from 2018 to 2020. Okay, and of course, the Saudi Arabian government should be proud to know that they rank number 1 in terms of absolute score changes. Okay, so you will see here that an absolute change in ease of doing business score by just 7 points raises their rank from 92 to 62. You jump 30 positions in the world ranking. And of course, such gains are very important, as we will see in the conclusion when I talk about international reputation and I talk about the importance of really building new ecosystems that attract wonderful talent. I'm also happy to notice on this link, other improvements have been made largely by countries in the emerging world, right? So you have Tajikistan, you have Bahrain, you have Pakistan, you have Kuwait, and of course you have major economies, China and India, on this particular list. Okay. So keep this list in mind. We'll come back to it in the conclusion. But what I really want you to take away is that, you know, in 2018, before COVID hit, we had emerging economies that were not doing so well on this particular list. But over the last year and a half, we've seen major gains being made by emerging economies from around the world, and major gains being made by countries in the Middle East, South Asia, and of course, East Asia, with Saudi Arabia, China, India, Tajikistan, Bahrain making massive, massive gains. So we should actually ask ourselves, as a case study, what explains these gains, right? In the case of Saudi Arabia, what explains their market improvement in creating an entrepreneurship ecosystem that is really unleashing new talent and new forms of innovation? So a couple of things I would like to flag for you. In this particular study that I cited by the World Bank 2020, we see that Saudi Arabia has made wonderful, wonderful leaps and bounds in a couple of areas. First, starting a business, okay? They've established a portal, the Meras portal, which some of you might be familiar with, which has really made it very easy for businesses to start their work. And of course, the major challenge to starting a business is being able to formally incorporate a business. And in this particular case, the Meras platform has been really wonderful. In addition to, of course, the famous case of allowing women to now obtain driver's licenses, Saudi Arabia has also eliminated requirements for married women to provide additional documents when applying for national identity cards. This is just one step in the right direction to help unleash female entrepreneurship, an area which I will come back to later. Of course, other areas include making construction permits much easier to get, getting electricity, obtaining credit, protecting minority investors, of course, paying taxes. Everyone is familiar with the value-added tax, which was introduced in 2020. And this is important for the government because as they introduce value-generating companies, products, and services, they must surely tax a small percentage of that so they can use that tax income to reinvest in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is only going to unleash more value in the years to come. And finally, enforcing contracts and resolving insolvency, two very important areas, which in fact India lags behind on, that Saudi Arabia has done wonderful in the last year and a half to improve their entrepreneurial ecosystem. So what I would like to emphasize based on this particular set of slides is that during and after COVID-19, emerging markets outside of Western Europe and Northern America is where the greatest potential for building entrepreneurial ecosystem exists. I must state this point again because it's a very important point. During and after COVID-19, in the years to come, markets outside of America and Europe is really where the greatest potential for building entrepreneurial ecosystems exists, and countries who are trying to make leaps and bounds and improve their ecosystems, as we saw in the previous slides, are going to be the future of where entrepreneurship actually exists. Now, this does not mean that everything is perfect and that we should not look for ways to improve, okay? One area that emerging markets, including Saudi Arabia, India, China, parts of Africa, can improve in is unleashing the power of female entrepreneurship. So, despite the fact that emerging markets are making overall gains in creating amazing entrepreneurial ecosystems, we still need to improve opportunities for our young female citizens who have immense potential in building businesses of great global value. And this is just a quick statistic I would like to share with you, that developed countries still score very well in providing environments for females to sort of generate businesses. And of course, the sad truth is, of course, if you look on this list, that India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Northern Africa with Tunisia and Egypt rank fairly low. And the sad truth is that 60% of countries still score marginally low in terms of supporting women entrepreneurs, okay? In this particular list, if you're wondering where Saudi Arabia falls, they rank somewhere in the middle at about 50, which is quite good compared to India and Pakistan, but still far below the advanced developed nations that you see in the green here. So the point I want to make here is that our greatest opportunities exist in supporting female entrepreneurship in emerging markets, especially after COVID-19. We have certainly made leaps. In 2007, we see that women own a certain percentage of businesses. Between 2007 and 2012, that number has increased by around 30%. And I'm happy to report that in 2012, a little outdated statistic, but still gives us a sense that women were making leaps and strides in terms of the kind of businesses they started and found. I did a survey of Wharton students where I teach at the University of Pennsylvania, and of those individuals that have started companies in North America and or other parts of the world, I found that in my own student body, majority of entrepreneurs are actually women. And there are several reasons for why women are capable of starting their own businesses. I don't want to get into that now, but the point is that we have to see that, on the ground, this is an immensely overlooked area that countries and policymakers can focus on as they think about ways to come out of COVID-19 in the years to come. The last slide I will share with you about female entrepreneurship is this particular slide, which I think is a very important slide. This slide maps country-level female entrepreneurship scores, and the source is right there at the bottom, to a country's GDP. And it's unfortunate to see Saudi Arabia, Iran, and some other countries in the Middle East, Northern Africa, and even Asia ranking fairly low. They have very high national average GDPs, but they rank fairly low in terms of female entrepreneurship scores. If you look to the north of the line, so north of the line, you will see that United States, Australia are really doing wonderful in terms of having high GDP, but also supporting female entrepreneurs, or a country like Chile, which has done excellent in supporting its female entrepreneurs, even though their GDP relative to advanced industrial economies is fairly low. The point I want to make is that if we think about improving entrepreneurial ecosystems, and if countries want to make further leaps in their national and global ranking, they must identify ways to support female entrepreneurship during and after COVID. In the few remaining minutes I have, I would like to just wrap up with a couple of key conclusions, and I hope I have a couple of minutes for questions. The first main conclusion is that during and after COVID-19, the global epicenter for entrepreneurship is shifting east. Okay? As we think about the 10 economies that have improved the most in global entrepreneurial score rankings, you will see, as I mapped them here for you, they are all outside of North America and Europe, and are parts of Africa, the Middle East, and really South and East Asia. So the global epicenter is shifting east, and we have an immense opportunity here to build new companies, big and small, to unleash entrepreneurial talent in these emerging economies, and to really improve the way people live their lives. The second, even though the epicenter is shifting east and countries are building capacity in-house, international reputation still matters. Okay? If you think about the first slide I showed with cycles of globalization, there will be a time in the coming decades where the world will reintegrate in a very, very thoughtful and deep way. And the international reputation that countries build in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years is going to pay dividends as the economy opens up once again after COVID-19. To give you a sense of this, I'm sharing with you a very important metric published by the Heritage Foundation, which you can access. This is the overall freedom score given to each particular country. And there are 12 metrics here, ranging from protecting property rights to government integrity, from government spending on infrastructure to the freedom people have to make choices about their money and labor. All of these factors play into this index. And the global average is somewhere around 60, which is pretty average. But you will see big emerging economies like India and China are not doing very well. Their overall scores are kept down by various different things, right? In China, it's largely lack of strong property rights, which are insecure in a communist rule regime. In India, it's anxiety around labor and labor suppression that keeps overall freedom scores down. It is really wonderful to see Saudi Arabia here in the pink is above average, and in most metrics is largely moderately free. If there's an area that Saudi Arabia can improve, it's improving government integrity and really allowing people to invest their money in financially free ways that would help Saudi Arabia elevate their score towards levels that we see with Denmark here at the top. So the major point here is that international reputation still matters. And finally, in the coming years, even if countries look inward to build their capacity, the future is going to be about coming together separately. What I mean by this is, as we enter an era of protectionism, as governments deal with ways to handle COVID-19 and protect their citizens, there's going to be a time, right, where the global economy is going to reintegrate, and this provides a real amazing opportunity for all of us to think about ways to build entrepreneurship in the years to come. So finally, I would like to say that regardless of globalization or deglobalization, countries have to understand that economies come in waves. The only thing that's constant is the increasing importance of entrepreneurship, and we should all prepare our ecosystems no matter where you are in the world. If you're a policymaker, if you're a government leader, if you're a private business owner, or if you're a small-scale entrepreneur, try and improve your ecosystem so that we can unleash innovation, generate employment, and build new services that elevate human health and the health of our planet. So I will stop here with my particular slides, and I will see if there's any questions, and I'm happy to take a minute to answer any questions that you have. Wonderful. There's a question that has come up regarding female entrepreneurship and what can unleash the potential of female entrepreneurship. And what I would like to say is that countries who are looking for ways to think about building female entrepreneurship should look to advanced industrial economies to see how they've done a wonderful job integrating women into the workforce and providing them equal opportunities, access to funding, finance capital, and ways that they can really balance their work lives with their family lives to ensure a wonderful balance so that they can build businesses going forward. One major industry to look at, for example, is the history of the beauty industry. We will see in emerging economies like India, but also in advanced economies like the United States, early female entrepreneurship in women-centric businesses, such as the beauty industry, were really crucial in giving them a step to build international conglomerates that have major impact around the world. Some classic examples are the Estee Lauder Foundation, the organization that supports my work at the Wharton Institute. Also, thinking about institutes like the Lakme set of businesses, which have helped Indian women, for example, really build businesses that have had major impacts. See if there's any final questions, and if there aren't, then we can end the session. I've provided my email address here for anyone who is interested in getting in touch to discuss these ideas moving forward. I'd be happy to share any additional research or perspectives thinking about entrepreneurship and global capitalism as we come out of COVID-19 in the months and years ahead. Thank you.